Mr. Paul Landis, what is it like for you to finally get this book out?
Well, for me, it's a huge relief. I never realized that I had so many buried feelings, and like 60 years later, it feels good, and I'm glad I've been able to provide, some information about what I saw and what I did in Dallas that day, and I hope it's helps if they reopen the investigation of the assassination. I don't know where it's going to go.
Well, we live in a nation that doesn't mind stepping back into the past and reopening doors. And that's what's so fascinating about this, is that you're preparing people of the future that, hey, look, I was there. This is what happened. It's not my fault that I wasn't called in by the Warren Commission.
That's correct. I had really no idea what was going on at the time. I fully expected to be interviewed. I didn't want to be because I knew I'd break down. And that wasn't a very good image for a Secret Service agent. So, and then time just went on. I had nightmares for several months afterwards. I don't know when they finally disappeared, but eventually I just had pushed everything out of my mind. I refused to read anything for over 45 years. I'd heard the Warren Commission report. I accepted it, but I didn't read it until about 5 years ago. And I had no idea that this single zigzag bullet was supposed to have done all the damage it did. I just assumed that I didn't know anything along the way about the same bullet that hit the president, that hit Governor Connolly, and did all this damage. So
it changed the world, is what it did. This zigzag bullet, and it's like, wow. I mean, in fact, I got to be honest with you, I've not really been familiar with a thing called zigzag bullets.
Well, I wasn't about to share that. I just. I don't really know. There's a lot of psychological reasons, probably. I had no guilt about doing what I did, keeping that bullet. So I reached a point. I've been giving talks, but I wasn't talking in detail about what went on in Parkland. But people were listening to my stories, and people were telling me, you ought to write a book, Paul. I thought about it for a while. I started, then I put it off because, the attacks that the Secret Service was getting a lot of bad press and everything, and I didn't want to add to that. And that was around 2012, 2014. So I started to write, and then I stopped, and then finally I had no idea how to write a book, and people came to help me. I was insisting the book had to be in my word. Nobody else could tell my story.
Right.
So that's going through the whole writing process, finding an agent, finding a publisher. That just took up another 8 years.
Yeah. That inspires me when you said it had to be in your word, because that takes me back to Mark Twain, who always said that if you can't put it in your own accent, then it can't be your story. And so, there's a side of me that's going, maybe it wasn't supposed to come out until right now. Maybe we were supposed to wait and let it ferment. And now that it's out, we can reopen it because we've got a whole new layer of jurors out here now.
Well, they say whatever. I'm trying to think what I don't know how to answer that right now.
Yeah, I get that. Did you keep a written journal or a diary so that, because all of that information inside of you at one time, I couldn't do it. I'm a daily writer. I've got to get that stuff out.
I thought I had gotten rid of everything, but. And I wasn't really bothered by by anything, because each time I talked, the more I talked, I felt a little better and a little more relieved. But when I finished the book, I knew it wasn't the end, but I had to write the end. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I wrote that, I immediately broke down. I stared at my computer screen for about 10 minutes, and the tears just flowed.
Yep.
And that's when I realized that all this stuff that was suppressed was finally out there. Mm-hmm. And it's a terrific feeling now. You know, I'm able to talk about this. I'm comfortable talking about it. And I'm happy and glad to share my story.
From one author to another author, Paul, what was it like when all of a sudden all that stuff that was compressed inside your body, I mean, now you're free to be creative in any direction. Have you started any new projects? Are you doing things differently now that it's not in your body?
No, I'm not even thinking about it at this point. I just want to get us through all this interview process and move on. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine what you're going through today with people asking questions because you weren't prepared for these questions because nobody sent you the questions or anything like that. So I can't imagine what you're going through.
So I really don't know how to describe it. Yeah. I'm enjoying the experience, and I'm glad to share. I'm glad I wrote the book.
This is one of those books that I wish my father had, because my dad and I talked about this kind of thing all my childhood, because it happened when I was born. And so he always made sure that I knew about this story, but he would always say, actuality versus conspiracy, son, it's two different things. Maybe one day you'll get the story.
Maybe. I don't know.
You come back to this show anytime in the future, because the door is always going to be open for you, Paul.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate your honesty in this book. I really do. And it's something that everybody needs to read, sir.
It's good. I'm glad to hear that. I hope everybody does.
Absolutely. Well, you be brilliant today.
Okay. Thank you.